Welcome to another episode of Mysteries Unknown. Got a good one for you guys tonight. I've got Daniel with me, and Daniel had a really scary Class A encounter in the mountains of Oregon in 1989. But before we jump into that, I just want to say thank you so much for all the support. Thank you for becoming members and liking and subscribing to this podcast, because without you, it just would not be possible. But let's just jump right into this. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, my friend.
Well, man, I'm really glad you're here. Thanks for taking the time to jump on the podcast and share it with my audience. But let's go back to 1989 and just jump right into your story.
Well, I'm going to preface it with letting everybody know that I've never had a mental issue in my life. I never had, psychological help, nor have I ever needed it, because a lot of people say, and that's why we didn't talk about this particular incident for many years, afraid that people were going to think that we were crazy. This happened back in 1989. Making a long story short, I made it so that we lived in the state of Oregon, and it's just wonderful mountains and waterfalls and streams and rivers. It's just the fishing and the hunting is phenomenal. I used to go to a particular area, and just to give you guys an idea where it is a little bit, maybe 7 or 8 miles to the north, and maybe 18, 20 miles to the west of a city named Bend, Oregon. So there was 4 of us, 3 teenagers, got our backpacks and started walking maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, maybe 3:45 or something like that. And we knew that we've been in there so many times that we could go in there with our eyes closed. We made it about noontime. We made a campfire, and we cooked and we talked, and you know how you do when you go in the mountains with people that like it. So about 10 o'clock, we decide, all right, it's time to go to sleep. That trip, I only carried my sidearm. I always would carry a Smith & Wesson 44 Magnum, just because you're in the woods, you're alone there, you never know what's going to happen. So, and I took it, put it on the side, and went to sleep. About, I would say 3 o'clock in the morning, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, I hear the steps coming closer. Now, if you can sort of picture the fact that the trail is barren dirt, right? It's just dirt because people walk up and down on that trail, and animals. But then on the 2 sides, there's grass and dry leaves, etc., etc. So I knew that it was coming through the grass and dry leaves because I could hear the sound. I also know that bears might take 3, 4, 5 steps on 2 feet, but not much more than that. This I began hearing probably about 30 yards. Sound carries a lot in those mountains, at least in that area. And it kept on coming closer and closer. The kids hadn't woken up, and when it was almost there, it stopped. I could see a big, huge shadow, but because it was full moon and the moon was in the back of this being or individual or person, whatever it was at that time in my mind, I figured that's why I see such a huge thing there. I mean, it can't possibly be that big. So, and it stays there. It was probably 2 feet from my tent, maybe less. So I begin to hear the breathing. It was very heavy breathing coming from something that was not human. So my mind, now keep in mind, everybody, that I had just woken up, perhaps 60 seconds before, if that, right? So I'm kind of still wondering and trying to figure this out, and I begin to get worried because I didn't know if it was really people trying to perhaps stand there and rob us or hurt us. My son was there, 2 kids were there, and I turn over, put the gun in my chest like that, pointing the other way, and I say out loud, "Hey, I don't know who's out there, but do not touch the tent. Do not try to come in the tent. I do have a gun and I will fire. I don't know who you are. Nobody answered anything, but the breathing continued. When I said that loud and with authority, the kids woke up and they were, they all sat up, etc. And breathing continued. And then 30 seconds later, I see the shadow. It starts walking again and it starts going to the left or north. It came from the right because I was facing east. So it came from the right. And now it was going, or it will continue north on the Pacific Crest Trail. The moment I saw that, I opened the zipper, put one leg out, and maybe 10, 12, 15 yards, 15 at the very most. And a couple of the kids also looked out. Was this absolute awe-inspiring, impressive animal. It heard our noise, the noise that we made, and it turned around. I remember thinking, if this animal attacks us, there'd be no way that a 44 Magnum will stop them in 15, 20 yards or 10, 15 yards. Impossible. I know what a 44 Magnum bullet can do. And I estimated this creature to be 9 feet tall, no less than 800 or 900 pounds. I always tell people that the legs were like a 5-gallon bucket, around like that. The arms were maybe 7 or 8 inches below its knees when they did put it down, because it was kind of a little agitated. And I remember the face was a mixture of a human and a simian. And I can tell everybody the following. A lot of people ask me, well, why didn't you take a picture? Well, I said, well, first of all, keep in mind that it was 1989 and phones didn't have a picture. That's number one. And even if I would have had 10 cameras there is no way you're going to wake up, encounter that situation, be looking at something you've never seen before, and have the presence of mind and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to get a camera and take a picture, right? But I can tell anybody that has a gun in his hand and sees that face, even if I would have had a rifle, even if I would have had, like, say, an elephant gun that I knew that it would take it down in one shot, you don't pull the trigger when you're looking at almost a human face. You don't do that. It's just very shocking. Now, when he saw that we made that noise, he let what I call a growl slash scream that lasted perhaps for 10 or 15 seconds, that echoed in those mountains. We were almost paralyzed. And I was thinking, I hope God it doesn't come this way. But it didn't. It turned around and it was walking a lot faster than the rhythm of the paces that I had heard before. Very fast, turn around, look back 2, 3 times. We could see the shadow because, remember, full moon, so we could see it. And perhaps when it was maybe 80, 100 yards, then it turned back east, away from the trail that goes north, and towards the Three Sisters Wilderness area. I mean, Three Sisters Wilderness Mountain. The Three Sisters Wilderness area, they call it Three Sisters because it's 3 volcanoes that are one beside each other. And so all that country there is called Three Sisters Wilderness area. And it turned to the right and it went away and never came back that night. Of course, we couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. So we got out of the tent. I was hugging my gun. We started the fire again. And that's it. Nothing happened again the next night that we slept there. Nothing happened. Uh, we only would talk about that for the next perhaps 15, 20 years. We only spoke amongst ourselves because, first of all, I was running a big organization as a lead engineer, And I didn't want them to think that there was a crazy guy, and all that. In any case, the reason we decided to, or I decided to put it up now is because now everybody's saying what they've seen, and if you look at a map with encounters, look at the Northwest, and you'll see that it's just covered. Anything from Northern California to the entire state of Oregon to the entire state of Washington to a large part of Canada, all that area is just, there is areas I have been there. There's a place right about maybe 8 or 10 miles from there that they call Indian holes, and you go in there and you just know that it's almost impossible for people who have been there before. You just wonder, you say, you know it is absolutely as remote as you can imagine.
It's hard to put a place like that into words. These places are so massive and so rural, and it's kind of hard to explain. But going back to your encounter, that had to be extremely scary knowing that there wasn't anything between you and the tent and it. But I'm just glad you're here to share that story with us. But I do have a couple questions. First of all, how did that affect your life? Because that is a life-changing event. And secondly, did you smell anything or did you sense anything?
Yeah, that's one thing I didn't mention, is that there was no smell. No, I mean, not at that moment. We got out, and I know it was standing there for 30 seconds or more, probably a minute and a half, and there was absolutely no smell that I could relate to the one they describe as dog smell or putrid smell. No smell. There was no wind, so it's not like the wind was carrying it away. That is one. Number two is, after thinking about it for a while and kind of digesting the way that the creature acted, it wasn't like it wanted to attack us. It was like, look, just don't follow me. Leave me alone. That was really the message that I took from that, because it didn't have any aggressive intent. It let us know that it meant that it was serious, but at no time did it try to advance in any way. On the contrary, it was ready to go. And the moment that the growl and that howl ended, it turned around and it was just walking, and you could see he's worried about us following it. And you asked me, how did it affect our lives? It changes your life forever. I was neutral to the thought, to the existence. Now, keep in mind that that's St. Helen, and if you guys have seen some videos, there is people that claim to have been there with the government, and that they have seen him, and the government was helping him, and some of them were burned, and all of that, and I was in all that area of Washington and Mount St. Helen and all of that, and I'm a private pilot, so I would fly all over that area, etc., and land in small strips that they, in places, etc. And it's just so wild and so large. But you never forget. I was completely neutral. I wasn't a non-believer, nor someone who would make fun, but I wasn't a believer like I am now.
Oh, absolutely, man. And you brought up some good points because if it wanted to attack you, it would have. With all that being said, like, what do you think Bigfoot is, Daniel? And there's no wrong answer, but I would love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, well, let me tell you. It is definitely a species. And when you think about what I have just explained, you have to arrive at the conclusion that there was intelligence involved in that interaction on his part. I mean, he stopped. He's interested in whatever is there. He's not a wild animal that attacks like a bear would. He walks away, he looks back, he can send a message, and as he walks away, he's looking back like a human. Hey, are you following me? Are you following me? So what do I think they are? They're just a species that has not been officially discovered. And let me say something for those that may not know. The state of Washington, and you can look this up, the state of Washington have included Bigfoot in its protected species list. And you wonder why. I mean, it isn't just because they want to make a joke, you know?
Well, I think the government definitely knows about it, man. Like, why else would they have it listed on their website as a protected species? And you brought up some really good points, and that would answer a lot of questions. But with all that being said, if you had the opportunity to see Bigfoot again, would you want to?
Oh, absolutely. Well, let me tell you, I hadn't mentioned this. I hurt my lower back and had surgery, and I'm on a wheelchair. I live on a wheelchair, and otherwise, I'm absolutely healthy. No blood pressure, no sugar, nothing. I eat indiscriminately, as I always have, and I have no problem. As you can see me, I'm pretty healthy. But yes, absolutely. If I could, I would love to be able to go there now with more understanding and perhaps even wisdom of what's going on. I would definitely do it. In hindsight, there's many times. This time we backpacked, but there were times that we would go there. We would camp within a mile of that place that I described. It was in a meadow with a creek in the middle, and the horses were there. But in more than one occasion, I felt commotion in the horses that were not normal, and now today I understand that it's probably that at the very least they smelled it. You know.
I think they're definitely highly intelligent, and they probably watched you many times before you saw it. And I'm just glad that you're here, glad your health is good, and that you're doing really well. I appreciate you taking the time to jump on here and share that really scary experience, because it's not an easy thing to do. But guys, if you have a mystery you would like to send me, you can email it to me at video@jscreativear.com. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Consider being a member, and like I always say, stay prayed up. We'll see you in the next episode.